So the concept of depreciation, and again, a lot of this is going to be fairly review to you. Part of what you have to do in accounting is realize that we have very precise definitions or meanings of various words. So when you say, oh yeah, I bought a new car and it depreciates like 10,000 when you drive it out of the dealer's lot, that's not what we're talking about in accounting. That's talking about the value of the car plummets once it's a used car, once it's not brand new anymore. So depreciation, not valuation. What it is cost allocation. You've bought something that's going to serve the company over a bunch of years, and we're simply we're allocating the cost over the years of the useful life. It has to be systematic and rational, not crazy and random. Okay. Okay. So let's get into a little more detail on this here. I think the notes may be helpful in, sort of going into the background of the different methods. And I think we'll just kind of jump to what these factors are in the methods. Okay, so we have to consider the depreciable base. That is different than the cost of the asset. So the purchase price paid or the cost exchange price paid is one item. The depreciable base is that cost less the estimated salvage value, if any. And that gives you the depreciable base. And it's the depreciable base that we're allocating over the life of the asset, usually down to the salvage value. Okay, salvage value, sometimes it's 0, sometimes it will be given in a problem. The depreciable base, they go into a lot of, it's the value of the usefulness that's expected to be consumed. And so that's what we allocate over time and not the acquisition cost. Okay, so that's a couple of terms here. Estimated useful life. Useful life is not the same as the physical life. You can have an asset that will last for 20 years, but if it's only going to be useful to your company for 5 years, you only depreciate it over those 5 years. So I like the example, I don't know if you've ever been to Slater Mill in Rhode Island. It's in great shape, but its useful life ended, I don't know, probably over decades ago, many decades ago at this point. So the useful life is the service life. How long is this asset going to provide service to the company? And technological change has a lot to do with that, as you can see from Slater Mill. Okay, so that's estimated useful life. You can retire an asset, you're done with it. It can be physical deterioration, or it can be the end of its useful life, its service life. And that could be because the company's needs have changed, it may be obsolete, or there may be something better. Supersession, these are all good words to know. Okay, what else have we got here? Okay, when it comes down to the estimates, the companies arrive at their methods of depreciation. A lot of times you want to be using the same one of others in your industry. They base the estimated life on past experience and various statistical methods, or they just come up with it. It's important to be able to justify the useful life, though. Okay, so the method, we'll be getting into different methods here. Straight line, you remember from AC 102. And that kind of assumes the same usefulness each period. You're taking a set amount each year. Activity methods, this is your units of activity. That's based on how much the asset is being used. So it's miles driven, hours of work, units produced. It can be various different activities, measures, units of activity. It's what's called a variable charge method because the depreciation will vary depending on how much the asset is used, how much it produces, how much, how many hours it's used, and so forth. That one, it's kind of hard to apply to buildings. Mostly useful in, like if you think of a copy machine, that can tell you how many copies were produced. My tractor loader backhoe has hours driven. If you have a fleet of vehicles, it could be using the odometer for miles driven, things like that. Okay, so those are your activity methods. You know about straight line. Decreasing charge, this is generally your double declining balance. And there's a lot of theoretical reason why the declining charge methods are preferable. If you are balancing off, and this probably gets into more than what you need to know, but if you're balancing off you're trying to allocate the cost of the asset over its useful life, chances are its repair and maintenance expenses are fairly low to begin with, and they get higher over its useful life. And so if you're taking more depreciation at the beginning and less at the end, it kind of evens that all out. Okay, so we'll be working with double declining balance. I will not require you to remember how to use, how to do some of the year's digits, but we'll talk a little bit about it just because it's kind of fun. Okay, and then we have what are called group or composite methods, and these are new. These were not covered in AC 102, but we will, talk about those. They're not terribly confusing, but nothing awful. Okay, so that gets us through the sort of the basic concepts, and so I think our next step is to look at some of the actual methods.